that's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
When you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
And welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. My name is Max McGuire. Back in studio with us finally is Joe Otto. Joe, how's it going?
It's good. I went up to Mount Rushmore. Spent a couple days there. Yeah.
Did you know that is a racist monument? Have you heard that?
I did not know that, but now I do know it because you've told me. No, we've heard a little bit of that, right? But it was quite the experience. It was actually a lot of fun.
Some people might interpret that journey as a racist pilgrimage.
And then there's me,
True.
who would not interpret it as that. It was a lot of fun though. It's a really good time.
Well, we're going to kick things off right today and kind of talk about a topic we've talked a lot about on the show, and that is: are we in a cold civil war? Are we approaching a civil war? I mean, we've talked about it a bunch. Every time we bring up this topic, what we say is that we're not there yet, but we're closer than we were yesterday. And the data is clear. The political scientists are in complete agreement that the country is more divided than it has been at any time since the Civil War. But over the weekend, what we saw in 3 or 4 states was that these peaceful protests have completely turned violent. I mean, I haven't seen a peaceful protester in a long time. We saw in Colorado a Jeep driving on the interstate, which he's allowed to do, get shot at by protesters. Yeah,
shot two other protesters.
Yeah.
And a negligent discharge that shot three of their protesters.
In Louisville, there was a protest by a group called the NFAC, the Not Effing Around Coalition. They don't use effing; they use obviously the F word. They were getting ready for their peaceful protest, and one of their LARPers decided to pull the trigger on his shotgun and injure 3 people. So the only actual injuries were not from the cops. Police brutality was from them shooting themselves. Then we saw in Austin, which we're going to talk about, a guy, again, making a legal right turn onto a public roadway blocked by people who had no right to be in the roads protesting.
Right.
A guy with a rifle walks up to his vehicle, points the rifle at the vehicle and or him, and the driver shoots him dead. We're seeing this. And then, of course, there's in Minnesota, in Milwaukee, the Trump supporter shot and killed in a drive-by shooting.
Yeah.
Bernal Tremel wasn't doing anything wrong. He's a
in front of his shop.
Evangelist.
In front of his shop.
Trump supporter shot dead right in the street in broad daylight. That's why today's podcast is called "The Civil War Has Begun," because now that these leftists are now opening fire, it is harder and harder to argue that we are in a cold civil war, because the consequence for getting in their way is now apparently death. So that's why the podcast is titled the way it is. Joe, what do you think?
We remember we had this conversation months ago, and I was like, look, we're headed towards a civil war. We're headed towards a civil war. I was actually re-listening to that podcast back in March, and I go, it's unavoidable. And it's unavoidable because the media is complicit in the behavior of causing, they're not calling out violent rioters as what they are, violent rioters and looters. They're not calling out the people that are actually funding some of these protesters and bad actors like George Soros. And they're not taking responsibility for the things that they're doing in order to raise the temperature of what happens in our country. And they're ignoring they're ignoring what's really happening. They create the most crazy stories behind what really happens. Like, guy gets shot in the street and they'll say victim of protester, victim of gun violence. And that's the guy. But this was actually a storyline, and it was the guy that pointed a rifle at someone, and it said that peaceful protester. I think it's a peaceful. Maybe it didn't say peaceful, but I'm gonna go with it. Peaceful protester shot dead at protest by driver. Peaceful protest.
You know, the New York Times ran a headline that was like, man brings gun to peaceful protest, gets killed for it, which is not true. Mr. Producer, I just sent you an image over Facebook Messenger. If you could throw that up when you get it. We're seeing this all over. No matter what, they are being classified as peaceful protesters, even when it's obvious that they aren't, right? Because it was amazing. I was watching, I don't have the clip, but I was watching a clip from Colorado's news, which will show what was going on in Aurora in a little bit. But they're literally ransacking the courthouse, and the way the media is describing it is like a peaceful protest got out of hand the other night. No, if you can measure damage in thousands of dollars, it is not a peaceful protest. If you can measure how many police officers went to the hospital, it is not a peaceful protest. It just isn't. Mr. Producer, do we have that image ready to go?
Yeah, here you go.
This was, I love this one. It's from
News.
ABC News. Protesters in California set fire to a courthouse, damaged a police station, and assaulted officers after a peaceful demonstration intensified.
Yeah, peaceful.
That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with, folks.
So I do want to talk about a bright, Kelly said, hey, we should talk about what happened in Berthoud. So there was a Back the Blue rally in Berthoud, Colorado, right? And my phone was blowing up while I was up in South Dakota, which, by the way, no one up there wears masks, or if they do, it's very few people that wear masks. It looks like a sane place. It really does. So anyway, I keep getting these text messages, and we had people that were actually at this Berthoud rally. The Antifa and BLM were literally run out of town. And one of the Antifa protesters antagonized and got in the face of someone that was there to protect or to be at the rally, and he got punched square in the nose, literally rocked this guy, right? I don't know if I have that video. Someone said they were going to send it to me. I haven't seen it yet. But I think that we're having people start to rally and rise up. Every time we have a pro blue rally, now you're seeing thousands of people show up, not just hundreds, because they're saying, hey, look, if you're going to come try to start trouble and you want to be violent, we're going to show up, and we're going to meet you where you want to be met, right? At the bottom, right? We're not going to go high.
And we saw that happen at the Denver rally that we covered on the show last week, where it was people just supporting police, and the Antifa Marxist thugs came in with clubs, with the retractable batons, and just start beating people with skateboards, just beating people indiscriminately, right? And the claim from the left is always that it's not violence if you're hitting a fascist.
Right.
Well, we've talked about this on the show. The definition of fascist has drifted so far that now just being outside and supporting police officers makes you a fascist. It makes you complicit in their racism, their crimes. No, it's absolutely incredible. I want to get started with this because we have a lot of incidents to cover, because there was a lot of shootings. There was a lot of shootings at peaceful protests this weekend. Joe, did you see what happened in Austin over the weekend?
No, I didn't. Tell me about that one. Is it another good news story?
Well,
I can do some good news here.
Yeah,
I came back to a little bit.
It's never good news when someone doesn't go home.
Right.
It's never good news when someone dies. So what happened, and we'll show the clip, what happened in Austin was protesters were marching down the street in violation of local ordinances, not obeying traffic signals, not in crosswalks. They're just marching down the streets in the lanes of traffic. Yeah. A driver made a legal right turn, tried to weave through the protesters, tried to weave through, and he's stopped by people who don't want him driving. We see this all over the place, where the minute you try and drive through a street that the mob has declared should be closed for their social justice movement, they mob the car. Well, the problem was one of the first people who mobbed the car happened to have an AK-47 strapped around him, and happened to be pointing it at the car and or the driver. So the driver pulled out his concealed handgun and shot the guy dead. So it's absolutely tragic. You never want this to happen. You want everyone to go home at night.
Right.
But they're trying to make it out to be like some vigilante who was just shooting people. No, he opened fire only after he feared for his life. So let's play that clip. We have a couple of them. But this first one, let's play cut 1 and we can see the shooting go down. So they're marching through the street. Cars honking, get out of the way. They mob the car. Everyone's going around to try and get to the driver. They open fire. So that was, it goes on longer as people are freaking out. But what happened, as I said, is the car tried to get through, didn't run anyone over, thought he had an opening. The mob convened around him. He laid on the horn. They wouldn't stop. Guy comes up with a gun. Driver fears for his life, opens fire. The 3 shots you heard afterwards were some random bystander shooting the car as he's driving away. Now, that driver left the scene and sought out a police officer, because if he would have stayed there, he would have been completely dragged out of the car and killed.
Right.
He wouldn't exist anymore. They would have ripped him to shreds. He had to leave for his own safety, and he sought out a police officer. But as he was fleeing, you had someone shooting at him, which is not legal, right? You're not just allowed to shoot someone for leaving the scene of an accident. You just can't do that. You can get their plate, you can go to the cops, but you can't kill someone for leaving the scene of a crime. So it's incredible, but that's what went down. And again, it's tragic. I mean, this, you want to hear how tragic this is? The guy, I want to make sure I get his name right. Garrett Foster, the guy who died, he has, I believe his wife, either his fiance or wife, is quadriplegic. So he was there taking care of her, pushing her in her wheelchair, and also had an AK-47 strapped around his chest. So, I mean, it's a whole other level of unfortunate, like, reactions, because now she has no one to take care of her, right? But at the same time, you shouldn't bring a rifle if you're also pushing someone in a wheelchair.
Right.
And
you
if
definitely
a car
shouldn't point it at someone.
by the mob, yeah, the car's being stopped by the mob. You shouldn't put the stock up to your shoulder, right? If you're going to leave it slung, leave it slung. But the minute you put it up to your shoulder and you approach a car, I'm sorry, this gets filed under play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And I don't want to seem insensitive to it, but the media is trying to make it out to be that he was some peaceful open carrier, and the circumstances, the way they actually played out, it was a lawful, at least from where I can see, it was a lawful exercise of self-defense.
And yet he lost his life over it. He lost his life over, and I'm actually wondering if that man in the car wouldn't have actually fired the gun had he fired the gun on him. Would he have killed the driver, right? And would there be no arrest, right? I mean, that's the other part. Are we actually dealing with right now a defensive position, and is that defensive position going to become offensive? Because I got to tell you, I don't want anybody to die, Max. I don't want anybody to die.
No, we don't.
Right? And frankly, I think there's a lot of things that can be done. Look, you want accountability. I remember we had about a month and a half ago, we had a podcast where we were talking about accountability. And I said, listen, and I bring this up, my brother was killed by a police officer. They did lie. They did hide evidence. They did all the things that they're not supposed to do. And made it very difficult for me to get to the truth. So do I want accountability? Yes. Do I think that there's accountability that needs to go up the chain? DA's offices that, let a police officer off, got drunk, passed out behind the wheel of a police car, was not charged, right? Any other person would have been charged. So there's constantly these reminders of this separate amounts of justice for the haves and the have-nots. And I don't mean haves if you have money. I'm talking haves meaning that somewhere along the line the secret handshake and you don't get charged. So I would like to see judges held accountable. I would like to see prosecutors held accountable for bad behavior. I would like there to be some sort of teeth to things that they do that are wrong, that adversely affect people in the community.
Yeah.
But if you think you're going to get there, and you think you're going to get someone like me or you or anyone else to get to a place where we think it's acceptable to go to a lawlessness, I got to tell you that you're never going to get people there. You're never going to get people there. Right?
Yeah.
You're never.
Yeah. The pendulum swung in the other direction. I mean,
right.
we can talk. I don't want to get into the police accountability because we have too many violent Antifa leftist shootings to go through today. But the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction to the point where now you have Antifa rioters truly believing that they have law enforcement, they have the prosecutor on their side, right? In New York, you have the bail reform law means that you can loot one night, get released from jail, and be out and ready to loot the next night, right?
If you're even arrested, even if you're
even arrested,
yeah, you could just get a citation. Say, "I just show up to court," and then if you don't show up to court, what's the teeth to that?
And then in St. Louis with the McCloskeys, where they're now being charged, even though the prosecutor was caught fabricating the evidence, right? We covered this on the show. They were legally defending their home. They didn't open fire, but they would have been within their rights, as the law is written, to open fire the
Absolutely.
minute they were threatened.
100%.
So if you're allowed to legally open fire, you're also legally allowed to brandish the gun, but they're being prosecuted. So the pendulum has swung the other way to the point where at least the protesters believe that they have the prosecutors, that the prosecutors are on their side, and that's just in the liberal inner cities. Right? You go down the list: Chicago, St. Louis, New York. Right? The prosecutors all have the side of the mob. I want to play the next clip because this is from another angle of that Austin shooting. It's from a dash cam on the other side of the intersection, just so you can see the lawlessness that the guy, the shooter, was actually trying to drive through. Let's play cut 2. So right now we're watching this. It's from the dash cam, and you can see all of these protesters walking down the street. They're not using crosswalks. They're not using the sidewalks. They are walking through the lanes of traffic. They're not. So now the light goes green, and this car, you're about to see it on the right of the screen, he's making a legal right on red turn, trying to weave in between the people. They mob the car. They all run up because they want to get the guy, right? They're all running up because they want to get the guy. He opens fire, and they all run away, right? We can cut it there. That's what he was trying to drive through. He wasn't trying to run people over. He was trying to find the scene.
Right.
And yet they stop the car. They mob the car. Guy walks up to the car, pointing a rifle at the car. Driver has no choice. In his mind, when he's told police, he feared for his life. He had to deploy force. You can't leave it to chance. If you're being mobbed by a car and someone's walking up to you with a rifle pointed at you,
100%.
I'm sorry.
100%. I fear for my life.
Every time.
Yep.
It's really unfortunate. But we also have a clip of the deceased. The deceased gave an interview. Garrett Foster gave an interview earlier in the night where he was asked why he was carrying a gun. And the response was very telling. Let's listen to that. Let's play cut 3.
Tell us a little bit about your gun again.
It's AK-47.
What you got it out tonight?
They don't let us march in the streets anymore, so got to practice some of our rights.
Cool, man. Do you feel like you'll need to use it?
Nah, I think if I use it against the cops, I'm dead. And I think all the people that hate us and, want to say shit to us are too big of pussies to stop and actually do anything about it. So,
Why'd you start carrying?
well, our roommate got arrested and they stopped letting us march anywhere, so started carrying.
Thanks.
So that is Garrett Foster, the man who was killed, the man who walked up to the car with his AK-47 put up against his shoulder and aiming at the car. Before that, he was interviewed and he was asked, "Why are you carrying?" He said, "Well, I can't shoot at a cop because I'm a dead man." But the other side, he basically said they're too big of pussies to do anything about it. Joe, I've never seen. Someone in the YouTube comment just said, famous last words. I've never seen a theory be so quickly disproven.
Right.
I mean, he came out with this theory, and you don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he was dead wrong.
And he said we're a bunch of pussies. I can tell you, I didn't say the whole word, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you surround my car, and I had this conversation this weekend with several people up in South Dakota, if you surround my car, just understand that there's going to be a lot of bad things that happen. If my family's in that car, there'll be a lot more bad things that happen. Because at that point, I don't care if I run people over. I don't. And I think a lot of people are like that. You want to have a mob mentality. You want to go after innocent people. Okay, go after innocent people. We're all armed, right? And by the way, the chances of you getting shot today by someone in a car, I'm going to tell you, has gone up 500% because everyone is arming themselves and everyone is getting a concealed carry, right? So if you're looking for a reason to to get killed, there's a lot of them out there right now. A lot.
Yeah, and we have 3 more these shootings that went down over the weekend to go through. But before we get to any more, please do hit the share button if you're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook or YouTube.
So let's
hit the
back
share
it up.
button,
Let's
like the video, and leave a comment.
Let's back up on the share. Guys, listen, we get throttled all the time by technology platforms. Throttled all the time. So, and it's evident because people by the thousands come and download the podcast on Podbean and or Apple Podcast. So if you hit the share button, at least gets the voice out there so people don't feel like they're on an island. That, hey, listen, I'm not crazy for thinking this way, even though the news is telling me that I'm crazy. So hit the share button. Let people around you hear at least some sensibility, that it's not all just a bunch of craziness that they're seeing on the mainstream media.
Yeah, hit the share button, leave a comment, and do leave a like on the video. It helps us reach more people organically. So this next thing, I don't know, did you see what happened on I-225 over the weekend?
I did.
I know you were out of town.
I did.
So you saw that one.
So you know that I actually heard about that, but I got to see the video again. And I guess they've apprehended the guy that actually shot her, or he's turned himself in.
Oh, did they get the shooter?
I think they did. I think he was a student down the
Let's backtrack. We're going to backtrack and explain what went down. So protesters decided to take over I-225, which is a federal interstate in Denver. Basically, it runs through Aurora. It's a major interstate. It's like 65, 70 mile per hour road. They decided to just take it over. Hundreds, some people said over 1,000 people, just blocking all traffic.
Yeah,
well, they're still on an interstate.
Yeah.
They're still on an interstate. So a Jeep decided that he would still want to get where he needed to go. So he drove through. He didn't try and swerve to hit anyone. He tried to drive in a straight line. And most of the protesters moved out of the way and gave him space. But as he was leaving, they're throwing things at the car, trying to break things. As he's leaving, someone pulls out a gun and they flatten his tire.
Yeah.
But as he's fleeing for his life, someone pulls out a gun and fires at him. I don't know how many shots. I think it might have been 3.
Yeah.
3 shots at him, which you can't do. If a car is on an interstate and you don't have the right of way, you don't have the right to be blocking traffic. You can't just shoot cars that are driving on an interstate. You can't just try and murder people because they're driving. And the amazing thing was that the person completely missed the Jeep and instead struck 2 of the other protesters. So again, for anyone keeping track in the wounded category, more people wounded, and not by the hand of the police, by the hand of the protesters themselves. So let's watch this video. We'll only play some of it. This is what was going on I-225 in Aurora over the weekend. Let's play cut 5. So we can see them chanting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho. These racist cops have got to go."
That's my brother.
Completely just loitering, blocking traffic. Yeah, they're just marching through the streets. It's incredible. Both sides. Not even just taking one side of traffic, they're using both sides of the interstate.
I told you!
There's the Jeep, just driving down the highway. Oh, it's more than 3 shots. Yeah, guy opening fire on the Jeep.
That's what the Aurora Police Department did! That's what they did!
So, incredible. Right. We have another view of it before we talk about it. This is and we can actually talk over this because it's a quiet clip. Let's play the aerial footage and talk about it a bit. So you can see, Mr. Producer, I sent that over to you, the aerial footage. That the protesters are there, and then all of a sudden they make room because they see a car is coming, which you do, right? This Jeep is driving down the road, not hitting anyone. They're throwing things at him. He's not trying to steer into anyone. No one was at risk of dying.
Right.
And yet they threw things. They broke his
well,
his,
but you didn't see it happen before. They flattened the tire up earlier, up in the deal. So Look, I don't know how anyone could get in trouble for that, right? But the
They
guy
impounded the car.
What?
They impounded the Jeep.
For what?
I don't know. The guy wasn't arrested, but they impounded the Jeep, so he doesn't have a car.
Well, probably
while
because they
driving
shot
down an
him.
interstate,
Probably because they shot
got
into the
attacked.
car. I
Yeah,
can't imagine
probably.
that the police actually impounded for any other reason other than to get the rounds that were fired into the vehicle out.
Yeah, I mean, either way, that guy still doesn't have a car.
I think. Do you have a picture of the suspect? Do you have a picture of the suspect?
We do. Let's
Can you
throw
put
up
that
image number 1. So this is the guy who is being wanted. I don't know if they found it. He looks like your classic soy boy liberal.
Josh, I just sent you a picture. Sorry, I just sent you a picture of who I think the suspect is. I'm sending it to you right now. I'm pretty sure this is.
Well, we don't want to dox anyone. We don't want to accidentally give the wrong name because that can be very harmful. But if he was arrested and the news is putting out the name, that's fine. I don't want to risk doxing someone because that can get really messy where you accuse the wrong person. Don't want to get into that. But if the media is releasing that he was arrested, they have his face.
I'm checking right now. I'm
They have his
actually.
face right on camera.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. Colorado.
Yeah,
arrested.
so the driver is driving down the road, and everyone gets out of the way, but then they start throwing things at the car. They flattened a tire, damaged his bumper, shot at him, and he's the bad guy in the media's narrative. He's the bad guy. It's absolutely incredible. And then what's even more amazing is that it didn't stop there.
Put that guy's face back up again.
Let's throw up image number 1 again. So anyone who knows who this is,
I know it is. I know who
already,
it is. He's a hall director for CU. For the
we don't want to put out names. Just we don't want to be at risk at that level.
I know.
That's
I'm sitting here staring at his picture. Same glasses, same everything, right? And he's a Sewell hall. I'm just telling you. I'm looking right at it.
Yeah.
Same glasses,
It's
same
entirely
everything. With I'm looking at him. This is easy. Let's call Crime Stoppers right now. So I'm looking at his face. I actually want to tell you that we know who he is. He's
it's not hard. I mean, it's a clear picture. Right? Someone's going to
put that picture back up again. Put that picture back up again.
Image number 1 back up again.
Image number 1. All right, hold on a second. Let me look.
We can't say his name because the liability consequences for getting it slightly wrong.
It's not slightly
wrong. If there are 2 liberal soy boys that look exactly alike and we just get them wrong, if they're twins,
dude,
he's wearing the wrong twin.
He's wearing a Res Life shirt.
I know he's wearing Res Life. I know.
Res Life,
I know.
Residential Life. I mean, he's wearing a shirt from CU on the screen, right? I mean, at least if you're going to hide yourself. But
yeah.
And by the way, he's just a person of interest. So I want to be really clear. We believe, like normal people believe, in innocent until proven guilty. So I'm going to tell you before you throw the book at the guy, he's just a suspect at this point. Although there's a picture of him actually with a gun out. So I think it qualifies.
Let's throw the image up one more time. Throw the image 1 up one more time. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but here's a picture of him pointing a gun and shooting. A fleeing vehicle.
Yeah.
So he's innocent. Okay. But he also clearly shot at a car.
What's amazing is it took me all of 3 minutes to figure out who the guy is. Now, albeit we know a lot about data, but crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I'm at a loss for words right now, Max. The fact that he hasn't, I just checked to see if he had been arrested yet, and it doesn't look like he's been arrested yet. Yet it took me 5 minutes to figure out who he is. 5 minutes. Yeah. I mean, 5 minutes.
And that's what
I literally just matched up his glasses, his face, everything in 5 minutes. Right? Boom. Done. I need to go be a detective. It's real easy.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying when I say that these people think they have the prosecutors on their side.
Right.
Like, this guy truly believes he's in the right. He truly believes that it's okay to
shooting
at
at
a Jeep driving on the interstate.
No, you're going to jail.
That's just.
You're going to jail. You're going to jail. I'm telling you right now.
But I mean, I mean,
guy's
just like
going
the
to
other
jail.
guy in Austin, Garrett Foster truly believed that he was in the right to perform a lawless stop on a vehicle and to point a rifle at the car or the driver.
Yeah.
Right. He truly believes. He truly believes that he was in the right, and that's the way they feel. We have a caller on. Our producer thinks there's a 50% chance that it's a troll, but you know what? Let's take the chance. We got Kevin on line 1. Kevin, how's it going?
Troll? No, I'm not that troll. I called him many times. I just this time I'm not going to go off on the deep end on the taboo subject. I'm not going to talk about it. I just want to talk about the protest. And what surprises me is not the punk rock skater, greasy haired Antifa dudes running around causing havoc. That's not surprising me. What's surprising me is the suburban soccer moms defending them, having them in mind, supporting them. That's what's surprising me.
Well, Kevin, let me before you say that. Look, I think that the soccer moms aren't very well educated on the facts, right? So they believe the statement "Black Lives Matter." That's a true statement. Black Lives Matter. I don't care if you think that all lives matter, blue lives matter. I don't care about it. But the statement "Black Lives Matter."
You can put any race in front of the words "lives matter," and it's true.
So I think that the suburban moms are saying, "Listen, that's what I'm here for." Now, I think that they're, largely, how would you say it? They're ignorant of what's really happening and what's behind it, because they've never done the research on why for a minute everyone supported BLM, right? And then after that minute, then they started saying, hey, we're Marxists, we're socialists, we want to change the world, change the country you live in, we want to take everything away from you. I think they missed that storyline somewhere. I think somewhere they missed it. But most of these soccer moms, I don't think, and I guess I'm speaking out of turn, I don't think they woke up one day and said, you know what, I want to go out there and protect these thugs. I think they truly believe, some of them, that, hey, if we can have a peaceful protest about this, then this matters to me. This part matters to me. What do you think about that, Kevin?
I think what it comes down to is they're scorned. They're scorned because their queen, Hillary Clinton, didn't get elected. This was it. This was their chance. They're finally a woman is going to be president, and all their suffering, the suffragette, all their propaganda that got pushed down their throats. Like, finally, we're going to have our chance. This is our moment. And he got ripped away by blowhard game show president. Like, you couldn't write this up.
No,
and I think that's what it comes down to. I think they're hurt, they're scorned because their queen didn't get elected, so they're taking it out anywhere they can. And if it means some Antifa thugs running around causing havoc, they're supporting it because they just want to see everything burned. They're pissed off. I think that's what it comes down to. If you're against Antifa, you must be a fascist because it's anti-fascist. Like, they have nothing. I'm Polish American, so I study the anti-communist Polish fighters. Like, I guess they're fascists because they're against communists. They're clueless. They're not clueless. I think they're just really scorned because Hillary Clinton lost. I think that's what it comes down to. What do you think?
I think there's something to it, but
I think there's something to it. And thank you for your call. Thank you for your call, Kevin. I think that is fair. I think it's both. I think that the leftists, that they've been angry since the election, and they've been spending the last 4 years, 3.5 years, whatever, doing everything they can to try and get back at Trump because he denied them their chance to have a woman president. I absolutely believe that there are people like that. I do also think that there are the suburban soccer moms who might not fall into that category, but just they see the way the media paints the issue.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh man,
they got
that's
lots
horrible,
of time.
right?
They got lots of time on their hands.
Yeah. And we see that with gun control, where the way the media paints the issue of school shootings are caused by lax gun control laws. And then you see how soccer moms, the suburban women, married women, start shifting farther towards gun control, right? It's like that on all of the issues. And we'll throw it up again. We threw it up at the beginning, Mr. Producer, that image I sent over to you what was it, CBS or ABC News. If we can throw that up one more time, this is what I'm talking about. Protesters in California set fire to courthouse, damaging a police station, and assaulted officers after a peaceful demonstration intensified. Even when they're like attacking people, burning down buildings, the words peaceful demonstration are still in the headline, right? So it is really easy for everyone, if they're not paying attention, if they only consume the news through the lens that the mainstream media is giving them, I can understand how they could come out on the side and say that these are peaceful protesters, which is why, again, please share this video, because we're not taking that narrative. We're not letting the mainstream media get away with the narrative. Share the video so more people can see what's really happening, because it's not peaceful demonstrations at all.
Yeah, so let's go to peaceful demonstrations. I want to go back a little bit, about a week. Governor Polis in Colorado, and this just came up because this just shows you just how disconnected leadership is in this country, Democratic leadership, right? So he was asked a question. He goes, "Hey, do you know that there are tent cities popping up and that at the governor's mansion in Colorado, literally there's tents all over it, and they're using it for a billboard for their next events?" And he goes, "No, I was not aware of that." It's right in front of the Capitol.
Yeah.
I mean, the governor mansion, it's called the governor mansion for a reason. There's security there.
Does he live in the governor's mansion?
No. But he has to report back to, and we'll have meetings at the governor's mansion. I don't think he's having them right now, but there's security on the grounds. There's security that secures the inside. Matter of fact, there's 4 or 5 times the number of police officers, state patrolmen that were there before that are now there guarding it now. So to say that he goes, "I was unaware of it, and by the way, if there's any tent cities, then the local authorities should take those down." He actually said that. He was unaware of what's happening in the city and county of Denver. We are living in a time where we are electing high school prom kings and queens. We are electing class presidents of high schools and middle schools. That's what we're doing right now, because the people that we have in leadership, especially the Democrats specifically, they're weaker than rainwater, right? Some of the weakest people you're ever going to find, some of the most clueless and dumbest people you're going to find, who they are perpetuating this as well. You have Nancy Pelosi coming out saying these are peaceful protesters. You have Governor Polis coming out saying peaceful protesters. You have Newsom saying,
yeah, and they're not.
They're not at all. They're not peaceful
and there
at all.
are some people out there peacefully protesting. Like in the case of Garrett Foster, his quadriplegic wife was by definition peaceful. And I don't mean that as a joke, but she was one of the people there peaceful. Not everyone was trying to kill people. What was breaking the law? I mean, they still were breaking the law because they're jaywalking. But the point is that if everyone there was violent, we'd see a lot worse happening. There are absolutely violent actors. It's hard to say that these are peaceful protests when at the end of every single one there's a body count and there's a damage total, right? It's just hard. And part of that, sure, you can put part of that on that other side, the left, that they should do a better job of policing their movement. But those are the people that want to defund the police, right? They want to force Trump to pull people out of places like Portland
100%.
and Chicago. I want to play the second clip, the other clip that we have from Aurora, because after this Jeep drove down the road, which is all the Jeep did, he drove down an interstate. He had the right of way. He broke no laws. He wasn't swerving to hit people. After that, the peaceful protesters used that as an excuse to go after the police station and courthouse and other buildings in Aurora. So we have that other clip. Let's go to cut 6. Oh, look, it's so peaceful.
It didn't work! Your fence didn't work, you fucking pig! Shields to the front! Shields to the front!
Shields to the front. So your fence didn't work, you effing pigs. And then they say shields to the front. These aren't peaceful protesters. If you show up to a protest with a shield, it's hard to say you are a peaceful protester because you are anticipating it escalating to the point where you're going to need to have some kind of phalanx maneuver, like you're some like Roman centurion or something, right? I mean, that's what they're talking about, shields to the front. You would expect that from like a Roman centurion, not from a peaceful demonstration. So you hear that they're breaking windows, destroying buildings, hurting police officers. It's just again, it's really hard to consider these people peaceful protesters when that's what we see every single night when we log into the live streams anywhere in the country.
Right, 100%.
So we have another shooting that we alluded to took place in Louisville. This was a negligent discharge, which anyone who doesn't know is when you accidentally. It's when your booger hook gets too close to the bang switch. It's an accidental firing of a weapon, and the LARPers, they call themselves NFAC, the Not Effing Around Coalition, and they use the word, they don't use effing. They decide to have a march, and this is it's all African Americans. I don't want to go too deep into it because I haven't done enough research on their ideology, but they are an African American militia who wants justice for people harmed by police. Right. So they were meeting in Louisville. They're at a staging area, and one guy decides to, as I said, his booger hook got too close to the bang switch, fired his shotgun, and injured 3 people. Let's play this clip. It's of the news talking about it. Let's go to cut 7.
LMPD says that they have not made any arrests in connection with that accidental shooting, leaving 3 people injured, like Jesse just told us. That happened earlier today at the NFAC staging area in Baxter Park. Investigators say the individual involved was a participant in the march, and they are still investigating what happened. Police also say just moments ago that they made 5 arrests during today's demonstrations, but they did not receive any reports of violence or damage, and said that today's event remained peaceful.
It has been a tension-filled day for all of us. For the most part, we've seen peaceful protests. However, we have experienced a lot of violence and chaos from those hiding behind the right to peacefully assemble and using it as a platform to tear up and destroy our city.
Police say that they support people's right to protest and that they are here to protect people on both sides, but are asking that demonstrators.
So we'll cut that off there. I think it's hilarious that they say we arrested 5 people, but it was still a peaceful protest. If you're walking down the street with a gun and you commit a crime, you are committing a crime with a loaded firearm. I mean, even if it's just jaywalking, fine. But again, they're stretching the definition of peaceful here. When you're arresting armed protesters, and they didn't say what the crimes were, but when you're arresting armed protesters, agitators, it is harder to define it as a peaceful protest. I want to play this clip, Joe, and you can talk over it and give me your thoughts on it. But this is the raw footage of the shooting. Let's go to cut 7. See them, they're all gathering. Oh! Accidentally fired. Oh, 1 on the ground. 2 on the ground. Another guy limping away. Bent over. Yeah, no, he shot him with a shotgun. Joe, what do you think about this?
I want to know if it's buckshot. Like what kind of shot was in it? I mean, it looked like maybe it was just maybe a 7.5.
Well, we saw in the newsreel that the police were holding what looked like a hunting shotgun. I mean, it had a wooden stock. It had a long barrel, so it wasn't like a home defense shotgun. Maybe it was birdshot. I don't know. But I was surprised when I heard 3 people were injured. I was like, did he just fire 3 times? No, it was a shotgun.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Those little pellets hurt, but if it was a buckshot, that one guy that's on the ground, the first guy got shot, he got the root of that.
Yeah.
The most of that.
And it's unfortunate, but if you're gonna play military, if you're gonna LARP, and before you've even left the staging area, your comrades are on the ground bleeding, maybe you should hang up the boots. Right? Maybe you should put the costume away and leave it to the real police officers, the real military personnel. If you can't even leave the staging area without shooting one of your comrades, this probably isn't the profession for you. I'm just going to go out and say it. Because I've been to plenty open carry rallies. Joe, you've been to plenty. I've never seen a negligent discharge. And that's not to say they don't exist. But I've been to dozens, and I've never seen someone shoot 3 people by accident. Never seen it.
I agree with you. So I have confirmed pictures. I'm taking the pictures right now of who the actual shooter was in Aurora. So
unless he's arrested, unless the police have named the name, we cannot say it because the risk, even if we're off by a little bit, it's too risky. But you can you can send it to the police. We really can't risk because the consequences are serious. Like they're very
Yep.
serious for defaming someone and saying that he did that.
Well,
we just can't.
It's definitely him. It's 100% him.
We'll send it to the police, and,
Yeah, I think we'll
and
do it.
he'll be arrested, and we'll celebrate tomorrow. I want to play this clip because
I don't know how they haven't
John-
arrested this guy yet. Like, I'm staring at it. It's so easy to tell it's the same guy. Oh, it took me 5 minutes. What is wrong with people?
Yeah. I know. So I want to play this last one. We talked about which ones we talked about. We talked about Austin, the guy who shot. We talked about Aurora, the guy who was shooting at the car. We talked about Louisville, where the negligent discharge took out 3 comrades. I want to talk about the 4th one, and this one's really actually very. We laugh at the other ones, but this one really is sad. Let's throw up image number 2. This is a man. His name is Burnell Tremmel. He is a black man in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he is an avid Trump supporter. He is a street preacher. He is out every day trying to evangelize his community and trying to get out the vote for Donald Trump. Last week, he was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting. Everyone knows him. Everyone likes him. He wasn't into drugs or anything like that. He was killed because he was a Trump supporter.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, he was. They gunned him down the street. I want to play this clip because this is a guy who called into CNN. I'm sorry, not CNN, C-SPAN, and he actually supported the fact that Burnell Tremmel got shot. Let's play cut 9.
On the Democratic line, John. Good morning.
Yes, this morning, a Trump supporter was shot and killed in a drive-by in Milwaukee. I don't know if you got that news, but the people in Milwaukee are waiting for those troops to come in because they got weapons, and it's going to be a lot of bloodshed when they come. So that's all I got to say.
What's that supposed to mean? So now you have people on your air threatening our lives? Is that what it is, Jesse?
Let's keep going to Chris, who's calling from Oceanside.
I don't think we should keep. I mean, he just had a caller call in and said that that shooting Trump supporters is right. I mean, anybody who's a Democrat or independent should listen to what that gentleman just said and realize where the Democrats are in this country. They're threatening our lives. It is disgusting, it's despicable, and it's criminal. And that sounded like a threat against the president and his campaign. I hope the Secret Service investigates.
100%.
So that's why we titled this podcast "The Civil War Has Begun," because whether or not you believe that the Civil War has begun or not, the other side does. The other side truly believes that their cause is just and that any method to achieve their desired end, which is their social justice, their racial justice, is justified. If they have to shoot you driving away from a scene of a non-crime, they will. If they have to stop you at gunpoint when you're trying just to drive through a city, they will. Right? If they have to shoot you just for street preaching and supporting Trump, they will. That is why this podcast is called "The Civil War Has Begun," because even if you disagree, which you're free to, there are people on the other side who believe it, and that is why this is such a big deal. There are peaceful protesters, sure, but what we're seeing are not peaceful protests anymore.
No, they're not peaceful
People are getting
protesters.
shot. They're not peaceful protests anymore.
So I have to tell you, so I just sent an email to Aurora PD, just giving them some pictures and saying, look, I hope you guys already got the guy, but I think I got him. I mean, he's wearing a Res Life shirt. See you.
Shouldn't be hard.
I went to his Facebook page, saw pictures of him, compared the two together, and said, I think I found the guy. And I know that, I was going to send an email to our lawyer to say, hey, look, can I actually release the guy's name? And by the way, if we actually confirm it later on today, we will tell you who it is. But I will tell you he's wearing a Res Life or Residential Life, Res Hall Life shirt from CU in the picture. And so I'm going to let you just go about your business, go to the University of Colorado, and maybe look up Res Life, and then make your own determination from there of who that person might be that looks identical to that guy. So either he has an evil twin or that is the guy, right?
Well,
so
listen, evil twins are real.
Evil
That's
twins
a
are
real
real.
thing.
Yeah, and they steal each other's T-shirts too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they steal each other's T-shirts.
Well, hopefully they get him if they haven't gotten him already.
Why haven't they come out and said anything about it? Right? I mean, I can't even imagine the damage control that University of Colorado is having to do right now. I can't even imagine in Boulder, right? The People's Republic of Boulder. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, if this kid has a gun on campus, which I mean, that's
where else is he going to have it? Where else is he going to have it if he doesn't have it on campus?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, but if his whole deal is if anytime he doesn't like what someone in a car is doing, he shoots at him.
Right.
I mean, that's not campus carry, folks. that's a whole other level crazy, which the left always likes to talk. Oh, we need to make sure that only well-trained and sane people have guns. Right. I don't see anyone on the left calling for this guy to lose his gun rights. I just don't. I don't see it.
Well, and we keep seeing these indications of people that are breaking the law, right? So if you're a concealed carry, if you're a responsible gun owner, you know you cannot shoot at a car that's leaving. You can't shoot anybody in the back because they're leaving the property. You can call the police, right? But you cannot shoot someone that's fleeing you, that's going away from you. You can't.
If they turn around and point a gun at you, you can.
You
like
absolutely
we saw
can.
in Atlanta.
Right.
But if they're just running away, you can't just shoot someone.
That was a lawful shot. I mean, that was a lawful.
In Atlanta.
In Atlanta or Austin?
Yeah. The Atlanta one. Austin was too. I mean, we talk about these, and listen, this isn't just bias. Like, I live in Texas. I've read through all of the laws just to make sure that I don't get into hot water by accidentally using a firearm or using a firearm when I think it's allowed, but it really isn't. If you're going to carry, you got to know the laws inside and out. And I'll give it to you guys straight. If one of these shootings is a bad shoot, I'm not rooting for this guy to be right. But when you look at the actual evidence, in Austin, it's clear that he felt his life was in danger, and that's the standard, right? In Austin, in Aurora, you cannot say that the guy feared for his life when the Jeep is driving away at 65 miles an hour, which is the speed limit. Like you can't say he feared for his life when the threat is leaving. You just can't.
Yeah, well, but I'm going to tell you that the amount of justification happening on the left right now, especially in the media, it's gotten out of hand. Like they should denounce these things. They say, "Oh, you're not doing enough to denounce it." They're not saying anything. The media is not saying anything. And why isn't the media reporting on this guy that has to have been arrested? They have to be investigating this guy. I'm sitting here staring at the pictures in Colorado, and why haven't they arrested him? Why?
Maybe they have. Maybe they're. I don't want to get too deep into the rabbit hole, but maybe they're trying to see if he has accomplices. I don't know. Lots of reasons for it. I mean, the guy had a revolver, just shooting a revolver indiscriminately. He'll get his. There's no doubt about that. Before we end the show, I want to say two things. First of all, today we had almost 14 times as many people watching our podcast as Joe Biden had on his live stream last week. So keep hitting the share button. We're doing you're doing God's work when you hit the share button, making Joe Biden leaving Sleepy Joe in the dust. So keep hitting the share button, keep commenting, keep liking the video. But before we end, I want to play this cut because I saw this in the comment section where who was it? KT said the violence is everywhere. Yeah, when you watch the actual clips, you see violence everywhere. But the left truly doesn't believe that there's any violence. I want to play this clip. It's from a YouTuber. He goes by Fleckus Talks. Fleckus is his last name. And he got a man on the street spontaneous interview with Jerry Nadler, asking Jerry Nadler whether he thought Antifa was violent. And Nadler gave the answer that you'd expect. Let's play cut 10.
It is true. There's violence across the whole country. Do you disavow the violence from Antifa? That's happening in Portland right now? There's riots.
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires and riots. They're throwing fireworks at federal officers. DHS is there. Look online. It gets crazy, Mr. Nadler.
Unbelievable. It's a myth.
It's a myth.
A myth.
It's a myth.
This. What did I say before about how clueless these politicians are? They're like walking zombies.
He knows.
What a drone. What a moron. What a moron. These people don't care about the average American. Now, we go to work and we work our tails off, and we got to put up with crap bags like these guys.
That's the head of the House Judiciary Committee.
Oh, yeah.
That's the head of the House Judiciary Committee, who would be responsible with oversight for federal law enforcement. He would. And he is denying that people are throwing explosives at officers. He's denying that they are...
Debbie says
up?
I'm not paying attention to our comments. So, Debbie, you got to tell me what the comments are that I missed. What did we miss? Did you miss a comment, Max?
There's a lot. I mean, we got a lot of comments today.
Because
I try...
It's on like 5 different places. So just so you know, it's like 800 comments. So there's 80 on Facebook, and then we have, YouTube, and we have.
Yeah, we got a lot of comments all over the place. So I'm sorry if we don't listen to everyone, but we do look at them afterwards, and I've been trying to, as I remember, to look down and look at them. This is Jerry Nadler. Jerry Nadler's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee.
Yeah.
For him to just flat out say that officers aren't being assaulted, that protesters aren't using explosives to try and kill officers. I mean, when you shoot a mortar firework at an officer, Joe, I talked about it on the show when you were away, that stops being a firework. That stops being a firework at that point. That becomes a destructive device. And the law is clear. If you throw an explosive at an officer, the law dealing with throwing a firework at an officer is the same law that you would use for a hand grenade or a rocket-propelled grenade or a missile launcher or a tank or an artillery shell or a mortar shell. The list goes on. If you use an explosive in the commission of a crime, the National Firearms Act of 1934 comes into play. To say that that's not happening and to say that that's a myth that only gets talked about in D.C.,
right?
It is too stunningly ignorant to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's true, but that he believes it, right? It is clear that he knows what's going on, but he is trying to spin it. Imagine how pathetic of a person you have to be to try and spin the news cycle to make people think that violent mobs are not trying to burn down a courthouse in Portland and not trying to kill officers. Imagine how pathetic of a person you have to be to try and spin that.
Well, you'd have to be a Democrat. It's pretty much it, right? I mean, you have to be a Democrat, complicit in the behavior by putting your head in the sand and saying it does not exist, while watching them just rip apart parts of our society. And that's what's happening right now. We are in a civil war right now. The shots have been fired. First shots have been fired. If you go back in time for the Civil War, shots have been fired. Now, what's unfortunate about this is that people are going to have to be more careful and arm themselves. And frankly, it's going to escalate to the point where people stop letting it happen. They stop letting these guys come out of their mom's basement, right? And when that happens, it's going to be bloody because, frankly, the majority of the people that want a sane society, they're quiet. And that's what's happening right now. They're quiet. But if you hurt one of the people in their family, or you hurt their neighbors, or you're going to see the quietness go away, and they're going to say, okay, you tested my patience. I let you act like morons for a couple months. Now I'm past it, right? Now we're going to come out and we're going to kick your teeth in. And if you don't think that's going to happen, I'm telling you, it's already happening. Like
it's already happening.
What you're seeing in Berthoud by itself is an indication of where we're actually going, right? So what you see happening in Austin, what you see happening in Colorado and in Washington, and people are getting fed up.
Yeah.
And when that does happen, that's the thing that I'm most concerned about with, Max, is that, what's going to happen at the ballot box? I mean, what's going to happen if Antifa shows up to try and stop people from voting? You want to see massive issues? You will see people come out in droves, and you won't see one person get shot, and you won't see people operate with hesitancy. They're not going to. Right?
You won't have to wait that long.
You won't
have to wait that long because Sturgis motorcycle rally begins in early August, and Antifa and Black Lives Matter are planning to be there.
They're going to go.
Last place on earth. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, if they go to Sturgis, all bets are off. And they basically said these guys they're sissies. They're terrible. These guys they're not strong. They don't have any courage. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been to Sturgis. Have you been to Sturgis, Max?
Yeah, I've never been to Sturgis, but I think it's awesome, and I support it existing.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. I mean, it is definitely a spectacle.
And anyone who doesn't know, it's hundreds of thousands of people go to Sturgis, South Dakota. Most of them on motorcycles, but some people go, I guess, with RVs or whatever. Most of them are motorcycles, and it's just a gigantic motorcycle rally. it generates, I'm looking at Wikipedia, it generates $800 million in revenue for the local community and local businesses.
Yeah.
It's like without the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, Sturgis, the town of Sturgis, the city of Sturgis does not exist
at all.
It just doesn't exist.
The infrastructure is actually built just for Sturgis, the rally, period. Right?
Yeah. It's like going to Woodstock in New York, where there's Woodstock and there's not really a whole lot around it. Like, it's just, that's what it is. People go there for Woodstock. Same with Sturgis. So if the Black Lives Matter, if the Antifa, if the Soy Boys, if whatever you want to call them, if they go to Sturgis, they will not leave Sturgis.
Yeah.
They just won't. If you go to Sturgis intent on starting stuff, you will not survive. Like, that's the last place you go to poke the bear. Hundreds of thousands of motorcycle riders, bikers, the last place you should go to poke the bear is Sturgis.
Okay, so on your way to Sturgis, can we just deviate for a second? Because I was just up there. On the way to Sturgis, they've got these little towns. I mean, just small towns. And so we got to stop at a bunch of small towns and have bison burgers, because bison's kind of a big deal up there.
Yeah.
And it is, I've never met, first of all, I've never had such great food. So if you ever actually want to go to Sturgis, you need to go. But on the way up there, there's just these great places. There's a place called Desperados in Hill City, which is just about an hour from Sturgis, kind of like the stop in between.
Mm-hmm.
But these places look like, some of them look like they're, right out of 1885 or something, right? Old saloon type places.
Yeah,
but the food is absolutely amazing. The people are absolutely ridiculously nice. I mean, they're just really nice people up there, and they're not wearing masks. So I always I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever get a chance to go up there and you just want to go to Mount Rushmore, go to Mount Rushmore, but hit some of the cities around it. There are some crazy good food places there that you would not suspect. There's also a couple really bad ones, but we won't talk about those. Yeah, I mean, it was an experience. Max, going to Mount Rushmore was quite amazing, but it was also, the one thing that we did notice is that there's flags that go into the auditorium, and Mississippi's flag has already been taken down. It is down.
Well, I mean, they are changing the flag, but I mean,
Right.
it's still the flag until they change their constitution.
Right.
Clayton writes in, no way they are dumb enough to go there to Sturgis and start stuff. Yeah.
No, they are that dumb. They are that dumb.
You would think that, but as we talked about at the start of the show, a guy did just walk up to a illegally stopped car in Austin, Texas, with a rifle pointed at the car and the driver. So we can't assume that these people are rational, because they've already proven that they're anything but. Which is why, again, whether you agree with it or not, there are people out there who believe that the first shots of the next American Civil War have already been fired.
100%.
So if you don't own a gun yet, you should buy one if you're legally allowed to. You should learn how to handle that gun. You should get training in that gun. You should practice firing that gun. And you should get whatever permit is required for you to carry that firearm with you out and about.
And know your laws, and know the laws of the different cities and municipalities, because if you go into Denver, it is an anomaly amongst other cities and other counties in Colorado. And if you open carry in Denver, you are going to jail, right?
Yes.
So if you carry a gun around in your car and you're in the city and county of Denver and you do not have a concealed carry,
in the car you can. In Colorado, they do not have home rule to get rid of the part that says in Colorado you can carry a gun in your car without a permit. So in your car, you're still good. But outside of your car, you cannot open carry. You have to conceal carry. You have to have a permit. But inside your car, even in Denver, you're allowed to still carry without a permit, because your car is considered to be an extension of your dwelling.
Home.
Yeah.
So the rules in Denver are different. You go to Arizona, different parts of Arizona are very different. You go to Phoenix, very different. You go to Illinois, certain parts of Illinois where you can open carry. You go to Chicago, you can't even carry it concealed. It's very difficult to get a concealed carry in Chicago. So people just need to understand that. And by the way, Max, you just said it, training, right? You don't need 5 hours on the range. You need to join a range, and you need to commit yourself.
500 hours.
Yeah, 500 hours. And then you got to have recurring training, right? You got to get back out there and make sure that you understand scenarios. Make sure you understand and you're prepared that when you pull that, you never want to pull a gun unless you absolutely have to use it, right? Never.
Yeah.
So it's sad that we have to talk about that on this show. It really is.
It is really sad, but we're at that point where we showed earlier, and maybe we'll wrap up with this. We showed earlier where a Jeep driving on an interstate, where the Jeep driver had the right of way, had his family in the car. He was shot at for daring to drive down an interstate that the BLM mob had determined was closed that day. They determined, though, this interstate will be closed, and if you dare try and drive, you're going to get shot. That's why I say get the training, familiarize yourself with it, but also make sure that you can take it with you everywhere you legally can, because you never know when the mob is going to come for you. Like, I'm sure that guy driving on I-225 in Aurora into Denver never thought he was going to get shot at. You never know. And I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but you never know. And so if you have the gun, if you're licensed to carry it with you everywhere, because it's better to not need it and have it than to need it and not have it. So any final words, Joe, as we wrap this up?
Keep your head on a swivel, right? Stay frosty. Make sure you understand what's going on around you. Don't put yourself in a bad position, and stand up, right? In other words, I say don't put yourself in a bad position, but just make sure that you understand that the temperature's rising, and getting yourself into places where you're alone and you're maybe driving down in the middle of an Antifa rally is probably a bad idea. Regardless if you're on the right, just use common sense. Even on our side, use common sense. Let them have the tomfoolery and don't participate in it.
Yeah, no, leave the tomfoolery at home. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of the podcast. If you're watching it for the first time, make sure that you like and follow our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel so you can get notifications when we go live. We go live Monday through Friday, so like and follow the page and you'll get those notifications. You can also listen to the podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts if you have an iPhone. We're on the Google Play Store if you have an Android phone. We are on Spotify. We are on TuneIn, and we are soon to be on Pandora. So you can check us out pretty much everywhere that you get a podcast. So definitely do that. Check us out. Let us know. Subscribe. Let us know what you think. We do read the comments. We didn't get to read all of them because there were so many today. But we do read them. So keep commenting. So that's going to be it. My name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And remember that the fight to take back our country clearly isn't over, but the only way we win is if we all stand and fight together.